Welcome to episode 52 of the Hoopsfix Podcast with me, your host Sam Nita, full-time British basketball advocate. It's been a little while, almost a year since we did a proper episode. The last one was with Nick Drain in May of 2019. A lot's been going on since then. As you may or may not be able to tell, thanks to this backdrop, we're in a slightly different environment. And of course, because of the coronavirus pandemic, we're actually not doing interviews in a studio with the guest physically in person, but remotely. Obviously, that comes with its own challenges, but also the bonus, of course, means that we can invite a bunch of guests that don't actually need to come to London, so it should widen the spectrum of guests that we can get. The only other thing to actually say before we get into this, of course, because it's done over Skype, it's reliant on the internet connection, and the internet isn't that strong in here, so there are a few times where it does drop in and out. But if you bear with it, you'll get to it. I've listened back to it and you can still work out what's being said. There's just a few moments which gets a little bit frustrating, but I'm going to try and work on sorting that out. But yeah, this week's show is with Ogo Adegboye, a good one to jump back in with. Former GB starting point guard, close to a 10-year career, and we go into everything ranging from how he first got into basketball with the legendary Brixton Topcats program, going out to the States, Laurenburg Academy and Findlay Prep. He was actually part of the first basketball program at Findlay Prep, which became a sort of legendary factory of prospects in the States before his college career, both at JUCO and then NCAA Division 1. And then, of course, onto the pros and GB and everything else. So yeah, super interesting conversation. He's a great guy and really opened up in this one. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyable. I think it's a good one to return to the show on. As always, if you want to support Hoopsfix, our Patreon is still up, still surviving. If you go to patreon.com/Hoopsfix, that's patreon.com/HOOPSFIX. There you can sign up to give us a monthly donation of as much or as little as you'd like to help support the work that we're doing to try and help grow British basketball. Please go and check it out. And if you don't want to stretch the money, but you can take a couple of seconds out of your day to give us a rating and review on iTunes, that would be much appreciated to help the podcast grow far and wide. Only other thing, if you want to give me feedback, if you want to give me suggestions for guests, if you want to tell me what you think about the show, please drop me an email, sam@hoopsfix.com, or you can reach out to me on every single social media platform at Hoopsfix. I try and reply to every single one. Anyway, that is enough from me. Here's the return of the Hoopsfix Podcast, episode 52 with Ogo Adegboye. Ogo, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, obviously a lot to go into. I know we're under some little time restrictions here in terms of 60 minutes, and that's something I can't talk too much, but I guess the kind of obvious place to start is the beginnings and kind of how you first ended up picking up a basketball and sort of getting into the sport.
Growing up in London, it was always usually football, but then I took a liking to rugby, I want to say around year 7, year 8. Never really liked basketball like that. But then I was good at rugby, because I was fast, I could just run, and, didn't take much skill, so to speak, But then I broke one of my fingers playing rugby, and next thing you know, my coach asked me if I wanted to try basketball, and he was like, it's kind of like rugby, but you just have to, there's a little bit more involved. And eventually, I ended up at Brixton, and at Brixton, that's where everything changed.
How did you end up in Brixton? Because I did speak to Matthew briefly before jumping on this interview, and he told me to say that he was the talent scout that brought you in.
Okay, he was. I think I saw him at one of the street ball called the UK events, and he he told me to come down to Brixton on a Wednesday and Friday night, and yeah, that's literally how I heard about Brixton. And before then, I don't even think I had ever been to Brixton before. So yeah.
And what were those early experiences like at Brixton?
Oh man, it was, first thing I remember when I walked in, it was just this community. I could see kids on one end and kids my age on another end on one far court. And in the closer I could see older guys, adults and older teenagers. And yeah, it was daunting for me because I'd never seen anything like that. In one building, everybody just playing sports. And I was like, oh wow, this looks like it's going to be cool. And to my surprise, I hated it because when you first get there, if you know anything about Brixton, and back then, with Jimmy, it was like he puts you with the kids, like with the babies, and it doesn't matter how old you are, you're gonna be with the babies. So that was like, and I was there for weeks. I remember I was there for a few weeks, and I don't know if it was a test or if it was like see what kind of guy you are, character, and that's, I didn't like it, but I kept coming back, and eventually, I ended up loving it.
So how old were you at this point?
I want to say I was 14, 15.
Okay.
So yeah, pretty late.
And what were those early interactions like with Jimmy?
Oh man, it was just terrified of him. Just the way his voice, how deep, how loud it was, and how he doesn't even let you get a word out. He's still, I mean, like the whole time I knew him, he never called me my real name. He always called me Ogo, even though I told him my real name. But it was like, he's just a personality. He was just, at first it was just like really, like I was, as I said, I was scared of him. But then eventually I realized that, I loved being around him because he was funny. And if anybody knew anything about Jimmy, he was hilarious. And it was just, he was a guy who was always like talking in your ear. Got annoying sometimes, but, he knew so much. So it was a joy to be around.
So obviously that generation of Brixton guys is kind of like the group of you, Justin, Matthew, Eric, and and Loire was probably around then as well. Was he already gone?
He had gone, but I always heard about him every single day from Jimmy or from someone there. So okay. Yeah.
And so what were those kind of, do you have any sort of memories of those practices and kind of how you guys bonded? Obviously you all went on to do sort of great things,
Man, Justin doesn't remember this, but I told him, I mean, he knows the story. But first time I met him, tried to speak to him, and he would not talk to me. he would not talk to me. I would approach him and say something. I can't remember what I said to him, but he wouldn't he would just ignore me. I was just like, what's up with this? He was just very, he just seemed very arrogant and he wouldn't speak to me. And obviously there he got to know me and, eventually opened up. And that's kind of how he is even up to today. If he doesn't know you, it's like, yeah. But apart from that, everybody was, Moji, everybody was just so welcoming and everybody was just, it was easy, to be around people. If you worked hard, if you did your best, if you tried your best, it was like, it was perfect.
And in terms of competitions that you were playing in those early days with the Topcats, what sort of leagues were you playing in? Were you guys all on the same team when you're talking about you, Matthew, Justin? What was the setup then?
So my first year, now this is it's faint in my memory, but it's like my first year, I remember I played with Matthew, Justin, Keon. I never played with Eric. I think Eric was gone too. And I don't remember what league we played in, but I know I played, my first year, I only played under 16, I think. And then my next year, I think that's when Matthew and Justin left. That's when I played, I think under 18, under 16, under 18, and men's. So I was like, it was it was a lot of competition, and it was daunting at times, because I was like, I didn't know if I knew what I was doing, but I just knew just work hard. And that was literally how that was like the pathway for me.
Was it clear at that? Yeah. Was it clear at that point that you kind of had a talent for it?
No, I enjoyed it. It was more like just like, it was a community. And anytime you have a community, you get hooked. So I just kept coming back and it just kept going on and on. And, I didn't really, everybody my age wanted to go to America, but for me, initially it was more just like, I really liked it and it was like a getaway for me. So, it wasn't until I think in between, the next year where I realized that, I could be like, if these guys can go, why can't I go? And I just worked super hard, spoke to so many guys, and yeah, that's literally how it started for me.
So the move to the US, obviously, you ended up.
Yeah.
It was Laurenburg Academy first, right? Was that the first place you
Yeah,
ended up in
Laurenburg
the US?
Institute.
Laurenburg Institute.
Yeah.
I've been told there's some pretty funny stories from Laurenburg. So yeah, can you kind of how did the move happen first of all? Like, how did you actually end up getting there, and then kind of what were your experiences like?
Okay, so now I have 100 stories from Laurenburg, but so prior to Laurenburg, as I said, I was speaking to a lot of guys. One of the guys I was speaking to was Sean James. Do you remember Sean James? He played at Brixton. I think it was before you came on the scene.
Okay.
Sean James, tall, braids, doesn't have braids anymore. But he's an ex-Brixton guy, and he was at JUCO. He was at Barton County in Kansas. And his coach got a job in Laurenburg. And he wanted, I guess he needed an extra guard. So I was speaking, funny enough, I was speaking to Sean at the time, my coach, like, yeah, I could put in a good word for you. And I was like, sure, of course. And back then, it's important to notice that back then there was no internet like we have today, where you can just send your film out and stuff. But it was more like, it was word of mouth. And maybe you have tapes. I didn't have no tapes. I was just hungry to play, And Sean put in a good word for me. And the next thing I knew, the guy offered me a scholarship. Yeah, crazy like that, and I don't know if you want me to tell you some of the stuff in Laurenburg.
Yeah, get into it.
Okay. Let's do it. Okay. Some of this stuff I think back on like how this stuff happened. But so when I first got there, quick story. First got there, I think my flight got there like 6 p.m. But I told the coach I was going to be there at 6:30, just so in case, you know what I'm saying, just so I can make a good impression. I'm on time, blah blah blah. Even though I don't fly a plane. I get there at 6, and I didn't have a phone, so I asked the flight attendant if somebody could help because I've never been to America before and I needed, to use the phone. So she called him, the coach. His name is Mark Shue, never forget. And she called him and he said, oh yeah, we're just because Laurenburg is 30 minutes away from Fayetteville. That's a 30-minute drive. And he's like, yeah, I'm about to come pick him up. Cool. Any of the hoopers who know this, like when you first go to America, you overpack. I had 2 big suitcases, like for what? And I'm dragging his 2 big suitcases through the airport, the little airport. And Shu, he doesn't turn up. So this is like 6 p.m. and like 9 p.m. I have another woman call and like, she's like, what are you doing here? The airport's closing in 30 minutes, one of the small airports. And she's like, I'm going to call him. And she goes on the phone and she just goes off on him. Like, I have a kid from London. He's been waiting here for 3 hours, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh yeah, I'm coming right now. He doesn't show up. So at this point, the airport's closed. So I fall asleep. I fall asleep on the couch. I fall asleep on one of the couches in the airport, like on the outside. And at like 2 a.m., I hear a loud horn beep. Like I'm in America for the first time, 2 big suitcases, not knowing what's going on. And he's like, yo, hurry up. He tells me, and at the time I'm drowsy. I'm like just waking up, and I put my suitcase my suitcase in his car. I hop in, and we go over to Laurenburg, and it's black, so I can't see anything. And he has a nice apartment, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you can crash here." And I'm thinking, "Oh, this is probably one of the places I'm going to stay, like the dorms or something." And as I'm walking in, I'm stepping on humans. There's like there's people laying on the floor. I'm like, what is this? Found out later on that's like those are his favorite players. They stay with him. Weird stuff. So I stay like on an airbed, fall straight asleep, wake up the next morning, and he's like, I'm going to take you to your dorm. I'm thinking, okay, like, we don't speak, we don't say, he doesn't ask me about my flight, he doesn't say nothing to me. Next thing you know, we drive down to Laurenburg, and as we're pulling up there, he's like, we're here. And I'm like, wow. It looked literally like a desert. it looked like a deserted, like, I don't even know what to say. It looked like you see those abandoned like fields with like just destroyed buildings, like a worn torn area. That's the best way to describe it. Like, I can't describe it any better way than that. And I got down and I was just thinking to myself, like, this must be a misunderstanding, because this is meant to be a prep school. And my idea of prep school was like Blair Academy or South Kent, where Matthew and Justin went. I'm thinking to myself, like, something is not right, Nigerian means thinking this is a scam. But it's obviously Sean that told me about this guy. So I'm like, okay, what's going on? I go in there and it really, at this point, when you go through something traumatic, in your mind, you try to look for a way out. Like, nah, like, this is not so bad, or like, nah, it's cool. Like, this is what you wanted. You start to almost try to normalize it as best you can. It wasn't working. And I realized, like, if it was a movie, the camera zoomed into my face, and I realized, like I was in trouble as soon as I got to my room. Like, as soon as, like, that's when the camera zoomed into my face, and I was like, wow. And it was just, there's animals everywhere, like stray dogs, stray cats, bats, everything. It was a whole mess. And I had my first roommate in North Carolina, and it was just like, what is this? It felt like prison. And, every night, summarizing, because I could tell you 1,000 stories, but every night was like somebody tried to break into your room and steal your stuff. Yeah. I used to sleep with all my clothes and everything from my suitcase, my 2 suitcases, sleep with all my stuff like as a pillow, and it was just traumatic.
So did you last the whole season there?
No. Like, it was like, I was there for 1 semester. So I was there till around Christmas time, and then that's when it was like I had to get up. I had to get out there. Like, I had to, like, I was making calls, and at the time, Lual's agent, I was speaking to him, and I was telling he heard about the school, and people hearing about it just like you're hearing about it doesn't do it justice. You can't really catch the smell literally of the place. So it was like, I called him and I was like, listen, I need help. Like, I'd rather go back home. This was hell for me. As a teenager I had no friends, I had no money, I had nothing. So he used to send me like boxes of food. He would send me like this big box of like snacks and ramen noodles. I'll eat them without even cooking them. Like, and that's another thing, there was no food. So, yeah, there was no food there. So yeah, it was a mess. 2 toilets for the whole dorms, no toilet seat, no toilet door, shower curtain for the toilet. Sounds like a movie, but very bad one. But yeah, eventually I was just like, yeah, I'd rather go home than be here. Like, this whole basketball thing is not for me. Like this, yeah. So, but then eventually he flew me out to Chicago to stay with Lou and just look for another school. And that took about a month and a half. And that's how went through probably over 50 schools that said yes and then no, or then just flat said no. Some of them being taking international students. And it was tough. It was just like, because every day was just like, I was just existing. I wasn't really doing anything with my life. Like, it was just like, is this ever going to happen for me? And yeah, and even when it does happen, I'm out of shape. I can't work out. I can't really, function. But eventually, that's how we found, Findlay Prep.
And I'm right in thinking that you ended up, were you like part of Findlay Prep's first actual team?
Yes, I was.
Right, because Findlay Prep obviously ended up becoming a bit of a powerhouse and sort of renowned for producing players, right? And so you were part of that first cohort.
Yeah, so the coach who was the last coach before they, what happened with them, the last coach, Rodney Haddix, he broke his arm or his leg, but he had already committed to Miami, Ohio University. So Findlay wanted another guard, and here I was in Chicago, and I don't even know how the whole thing happened, but it happened, and they ended up taking a chance on me, and I went there, and still friends with the coaches right now. So it was crazy. It was crazy how that happened. The timing was ridiculous.
And how was your experience there in comparison?
Oh man, like night and day. You know, it was, if you know anything about Vegas, it was like I didn't really care so much that it was Vegas, but I just cared that it was sound. You know, I could get food. I could have a good night's rest without worrying about somebody trying to bring it to my room. You know, it was great. And the coaches there, they were great. It was tough to adjust to because it was militant. Like in terms of like, you have to make your bed. If you don't make your bed, the whole team runs miles in the Vegas heat. Like it was tough. You have to sit in front of the class. You have to do your work. You can't skip not one class. You can't slip not one. If you skip one, everybody's finished. So it was tough. Like, but once I adjusted to it, I was just happy that I was able to. It was things were done the right way, and that was huge. At Laurenburg, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what was going to happen. Like, you know, there was no gates. Anybody could just walk in. And of course, we didn't have no food. You know, it was madness. So yeah.
On the court, did you find, like, how did you find the transition from sort of the UK to the US? Like, what were the big differences that you noticed, or did you find it relatively easy, or?
Everything. Like for me, it was like I was playing a different sport. Like playing in the UK, you know, and I say that to a lot of guys even today. Like people or kids who are good at here in the UK are average or maybe below average in the US, you know, and it's hard to convey that because as a man, your ego just, you know, it's tough to be real, you know, but anybody who's been to America has had that culture shock, you know, and I'm happy I was able to get that, you know, at a young age, at that high school level where it was just like, whoa, you know, like you think you're good and you get there and it's just like, you know, it was tough. Like I remember one story, it was in Laurenburg. I think it was my first or second practice in Laurenburg. I made a friend there and we're going to walk into the practice and like, we're cool kids from New York. We're cool. We're just walking and we're talking. He's like, oh, you're from London, blah, blah, blah. And as soon as we get to practice, he was guarding me and he was cussing my mom. He was like in my face like this. And I was like, bro, we just walked here together, you know, we're friends, you know, but then I realized like, yo, it's war over there, like, and you have to be able to talk, you know. I don't think kids in the UK are not like anywhere like in terms of talk you're playing. Like I'm talking, not just trash talking, but actual, like just, you know, it's intimidating if you're not used to it. Intimidating when you have someone just loud, you know what I'm saying? Just like especially when they're on the other team, you know? So I had to learn how to do that, you know, because I didn't, when somebody, you could talk me out of my game. You could just say something to me and it was just everything just, you know, and that changed, you know, at Findlay Prep because everybody there was after Division I scholarship, you know, and that was evident from the jump, even from like the coach is not trying to get you to you know, he was trying to get the best out of you. And, you know, that's why the program was like that. So yeah, the transition was tough.
Was there any point that you thought, I don't know if I can do this, like I'm not cut out for this, is too difficult? Or was it always like, do you know what, actually, I think I've got this?
After Laurenburg, I felt like I got anything. Like after going through that stage in Laurenburg where there was times where I thought I was going to die, honestly. No, seriously, like there was times in Laurenburg where it was just like, yo, this is how I end. This is the end of my life. You know, I told you I have 100 stories. But after that, basketball was tough, but it was just like, I can do it.
Yeah.
Like I got destroyed today in practice, but tomorrow I'll be ready. You know, so yeah.
So then when it came to going to college, obviously you ended up at JUCO. It was Lamar, right?
Lamar.
Yeah. So how did that kind of come about? Like, what were your options when you were sort of leaving Findlay Prep?
So when I left Findlay Prep, I verbalized to a school, Texas State, San Marcos, which is just outside Austin, Texas. It's a Division I. But so after the summer in Vegas, I flew back to Chicago. I didn't want to go home. So I flew back to Chicago, during that summer, like that space, and Luwal. I was staying in Luwal's family, and working out, staying in shape. I didn't want to go home because there was nothing really here for me. And Texas State were very interested in me, and I'm trying to remember. Yeah, so everything that they told, like, that I heard about the school, I was like, shoot, this is other schools were interested, but this school was like, yeah, we want you, come. And it was just like, shoot, let's do it. I didn't really care, it was just like, I'm from Laurenburg, anything is good right now. So I told them, yeah, and I was going to fly there for a visit. And the day before I was meant to fly there, and they got me my flight ticket and everything, I got a call from my Michael Peck, and he's on the phone, and he sounds like I don't know if he's in tears, but if he's like just angry, he sounded very angry. And he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry, but they don't want you anymore." And I was just like, why is he calling me? And he's like, they didn't want to do it, so I guess they made him do it, or I don't know. It was just so, at the time, I'm not thinking about basketball. I'm thinking about, so when you're an international student, I don't know how it is then now, but how it was back then is you have this window to transfer your visa, your student visa, and I had a week left. So this was meant to be done, So for me, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I have a week to find a Division I school and for me to sign with them, and then for them to transfer my visa from Findlay Prep to the school all in 1 week. So I need a miracle. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what am I going to do? And I told my coach the situation is like, let me make some phone calls, let me speak to some people. And you can imagine like that limbo period where I'm just like, what am I going to do? So obviously in my mind, I'm starting to think I'm planning to go back home. And next thing you know, my other coach called me and he told me, that, there's a school in Lamar, it's a JUCO. And back then, JUCOs had like this stigma. Nobody wants to go to a JUCO or like JUCO. I'm coming from Laurenburg. Like, I don't care. That's why Laurenburg for me was a huge blessing because so many, there's a kid that was with me in Laurenburg and I asked him to come to JUCO with me and he was like, no, JUCOs. And I'm like, bro, anything's better than Laurenburg. So it's in Lamar, Colorado, which is like a cowboy town. It's very, country type, town, and you can even smell the manure. I didn't care. It was just like, let's do it. Like if I can go there and make something of myself and then end up with a Division I, sounds plausible to me because came out of Laurenburg. So went to Lamar, and yeah, that's literally how I went to Lamar.
Wow. And at Lamar, yeah. Like, kind of, so I know you led them to their first ever tournament appearance, right? Was that in your second? Yeah. Was that in your second year?
That was my second year. My first year struggled.
Really?
Struggled. I struggled because I had to make that transition from high school to playing against men. Playing against guys who were stronger. What I'm saying? Some of them came from Division I's. Some. It was different. So I had to make that transition, and that took me probably like half a year. And I started at Lamar probably in the second half of the year, and so yeah, but I didn't really have any schools looking at me and stuff. But I remember trying to leave Lamar. I did try to leave Lamar, but then I think I spoke to, it was Luwal's agent, and he said, "Why are you trying to leave to go where? Like, and start all over again? Like, what if you stay?" And I was like, "Okay, I'll stay another year." And I stayed another year, and it was a totally different experience. And yeah, we ended up going to the national tournament, and we ended up being 5th in the nation.
Nice.
Well, yeah.
And so did you have Division I schools knocking like throughout that second year, or did they start coming after the tournament run, or?
I had 23 Division I offers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I had 22 Division I offers, and my coach was like, he was he was telling me, listen, I'm going to turn off my phone because if like when you go touch and you play well on all national team, first team thing, whatever you call it. And when you go to that, you know, there's so many coaches there, and they like you get a lot of looks, you get a lot of offers. And before Hutch, I had like maybe 3 or 4 offers, but when I went to Hutch, it blew up. So yeah, it was at the tournament where I really like made a name for myself, because I was playing against like the best JUCO guys, you know, #1 ranked Chipola and, you know, Midland College and all these like powerhouses, and you know that's where I made a name for myself.
So you graduated from there in 2009, right? So it was 2009,
Yes.
2010 was your first season at St. Bon's.
Yeah.
Which means that also was the first. So 2009 was the first summer that I started filming for Hoopsfix. So that was the summer that you came back. And obviously at that point, yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea about basketball. Like, I had no idea we had players in the States. I had no idea what was going on. But what I do remember is just you turning up and just dominating in every single qualifier. And I was just like, who is this guy? Unbelievable. And then not only were you dominating, but of course in Nottingham you had that dunk, which was to this day the first real poster dunk that I ever caught on tape as well. But yeah, what are your memories of kind of coming back that summer as well? Because I don't think you were back very often, right?
No, again, you see, when I wasn't back, I was probably in Chicago, working out or just trying to. I mean, it depends on what year it was. Just trying to go to that next level or trying to improve, you know. And so, yeah, you mean that summer? You asking me about that summer?
Yeah. Summer 2009.
That summer, I was happy to be home, because that was probably the first time I came home in 2 years? Yeah, 2 years. So I was happy to be home, and you know, speaking to a lot of guys now and even back then, they were like, wow, like how much I changed and how much they didn't know that was the Laurenburg. It wasn't Findlay Prep. It was, but that, you know, my mentality and who I was internally was totally different. You know, I really appreciated the little things, and yeah, I was just on a different level mentally, you know, in terms of life and in terms of basketball and how I saw everything. You know, I saw everything differently.
Coming back and sort of playing against some of your peers, like from the UK, obviously guys that you've probably grown up with or known of when you were coming up in the UK. That summer, did it really crystallise in your head how much better you were than most of them? Kind of, did it change anything for you mentally of just like, wow, like I've, you know, being in the States has developed my game, or was it kind of like you knew you were going to come back and tear it up?
I knew I was. It didn't feel like, I didn't feel like that, because I was already told before I went to America that I was good, even though I didn't really see or play against much of the guys here at the time. But I already, you know, I heard about, again, at Brixton, you kind of turn off that noise. You just focus, you know, it's just tunnel vision. So coming back and, you know, playing, you know, and doing well in the summertime or whatever, it didn't make me feel like, I did. Because I knew that meant nothing for where I was trying to go.
Yeah.
You know, and even as I said, like every year was like a new beginning for me. St. Bonaventure wasn't what I'd already experienced at JUCO, you know, because that's a different, you know, Division 1 is different. It's not the same as JUCO. So yeah, so being around was fun. It was more fun than anything. It wasn't more like an ego trip or I'm better. Like, no, it wasn't. It was more fun than anything.
And then when you look back on your 2 years with St. Bon's and sort of playing Division 1 basketball, kind of how do you look back on that sort of stage of your career and your memories of college?
That was, I think, Division 1 was where I started to notice a pattern in terms of how, like, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. Because coming from the UK, I thought I knew this much basketball, but I realized I didn't know that much. You know, and then I went to Findlay Prep and I was like, oh yeah, I know now. And then I didn't know when I went to JUCO. And then I went to JUCO and then go to you know what I'm saying? It was just that same. And when I got to St. Bonaventure, I thought I knew how to work hard. And that was, for me, I knew I didn't know everything, but in terms of giving your everything, I didn't think and I still believe I don't believe you can go higher than that. Like the work we did, the intensity, the time frame of workouts, practice, stuff like that. That was the peak. And I don't think and I've spoken to some guys, I spoke to Luol in the NBA, and he says college workouts, it's not, there's nothing harder than that. Nothing.
Really?
Yeah. So, but my 2 years there was, it was cool because I chose a small school for a reason, because of JUCO, and I only had 2 years, so I wanted to just focus. I had Illinois State, I had the school in Florida, I had Florida, Southern Florida, USF, Southern Florida. I had a couple of, UNC Charlotte. I had a lot of, big population, like student body schools, but I wanted to go to a small school, and St. Bonaventure was the smallest one. So I ended up going there just to focus, and it was intense.
Did you end up leading the nation in minutes as well?
Yes, I did. It was the Iron Man. It was between me and Kemba Walker. And
really?
And it was, I think it was CBS Sports that does it.
It was CBS Sports, because that was my first ever mention in a mainstream press outlet, because they reached out to me, and I'm like, why are you contacting me? Like, I started some website a few weeks ago. Do you know what I mean? They're like, oh, we're writing this piece about Ogo being college basketball's Iron Man. Can you give us a quote or whatever? I can't even remember what I said, but yeah, that was the first bit of sort of mainstream press coverage that I ever got as well. But yeah, crazy. So yeah, you led the nation in minutes, and it was between you and Kemba.
Yeah, it was between me and Kemba, which player means more to his team, and I ended up winning it. So we had a 5 overtime game, a 4 overtime game, a 3 overtime game, 2 overtime game, and a 1 overtime. We had games where it was just, because we only had 7 players my senior year, because. I mean, I don't want to get into that, but yeah, we only had 7 players, and so I had to play. I had to play, full on minutes, and it was tough. It was very, very tough, but it ended up being a good thing to remember.
So then, when it came to turning pro and that whole process, kind of were you pretty much set that you were gonna turn professional? You knew that was the route that you wanted to take, and kind of what was the process of finding an agent and kind of making that jump? I think you signed in Cyprus for your rookie year, right?
Yeah. So I had no idea. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had no idea. I just wanted to finish college. I just wanted to move on. Move on to what? I didn't know. I just wanted to, I wanted to see what was next. And at the time, I mean, anybody who graduated around that time, you get 1,000 inbox messages from agents all over. Hey, I want to represent you. Hey, we represent this player. Hey, and I just did what I knew. So I went with Luol's agent. Big mistake. Because just because he's a good agent for Luol doesn't mean he's a good agent for me, And, you learn these things. But, so that summer was my first year with GB, I believe, or my second year with GB.
I think your first summer with GB was after your junior year, right? I think.
Yes. And my second year was in Slovenia, I think, or Lithuania, one of them. But anyways, I remember, and I'll tell you this, I remember when it was right after Eurobasket, and it was around August, September. And I'm just like, usually I'm ready to go back to school. Somebody sends me my flight and go to school. But this time, I've graduated, so what do I do? And so I call I was like, oh shoot, I have an agent now. So I call my agent. I'm like, what's going on? Where do I go? And he's like, I don't know yet, but I'll get back to you. And he got back to me the next day, and he's like, Ogo, there's a team in Cyprus. Take it, or you're going to be waiting till December. I was like what? I thought the agent was meant to work for me, not the way he's talking to me. So I'm like, nah. I was like, I don't want to go to Cyprus. I don't want to go to Cyprus, and I want more money. So it's funny, but this literally what went on in my head, didn't it? So he's like, listen, if you don't take this, you're gonna be home. You'll be waiting until December. And I'm thinking to myself, shoot, like I have to take it, because so I ended up taking it like out of fear, literally, seriously. And I ended up that's literally how I ended up in Cyprus.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then did you enjoy the experience in Cyprus in the end, or did it not end up being a positive one? Or
my first year, it felt like Laurenburg at the beginning.
really?
Because in your mind, you're thinking professional basketball. Like you're coming from college, and college locker rooms, you almost judge things by, the aesthetics, like, how the arena looks. So, what I'm saying? Like how the locker room looks. And when I first walked to my locker room in Cyprus, it looked like
Brixton Rec.
It looked almost like no, like it looked way worse. It looked like like you see the what's the name of this thing? You see the I've forgotten the name. It just looked terrible, the locker room. And I'm thinking to myself, as soon as I walk in there, I'm expecting like carpet and the team logo, and etched into the carpet. And I go there and I'm just like, it looked like Laurenburg. I just had to start having PTSD.
Flashbacks.
Yes. And I'm just like, yo. But then I realized it wasn't fake when I got for my first check. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, this is real. This is how it happens. And so, I end up playing games, and, that was a different experience. Like how rowdy, like the crowd, they can come on the court. Like, you can end up fighting a fan. Like, it was just mad. And sometimes you have to take the ball out on the other side because they'll spit on you, or they'll throw beer on you or something. Yeah, so you have to ask the ref, can I take it out on that side? Yeah. So my first year was like, it was just like a welcome to Europe. Yeah, it was just I didn't know what to expect. Coming from college again, it's crazy. As I said, every step you have an ego coming out of college, so you almost you think you're the man, or you're ready for these Europeans. I've heard it's not even as tough as college. They're not going to be working me harder than college, and you realize, that's the least of your worries. So yeah, that was my first experience.
So yeah, in amongst all of this, obviously there was the GB. You ended up, so you got your first, you got your first, you got your first call up after your junior year. So that was 2000 and let me think about this, 2010. Yeah, I think. Because then you would have gone to 2010 was your first call up. You went to Eurobasket 2011, Eurobasket 2013. So obviously this was kind of all around the Olympics, around the Olympics and stuff. You're playing under Chris Finch in those first years. Kind of, can you talk about your experience with the national team, like how it felt for you to get your? Because you didn't represent GB or England at any junior level, right? Like it was you just jumped straight into the seniors.
So so when I started improving and people started to know I was coming up before I went to America, when I was playing with the men's and under 18s or under 16s. Anyways, when I was playing, I did one workout for England, and I absolutely destroyed it. Like I played so well, I was thinking to myself, shoot, like they're gonna have to call me up. Like I played so well, and I didn't get a call. I didn't get a call. And
who was the coach then? Do you remember?
I don't.
Nah,
okay. I didn't know anyone there. Which is how I loved it. I loved it. Like I didn't care who it was. I didn't, everybody was just a face to me, which is how I wanted it. And I didn't get a call, and I was just like, when I spoke to Jimmy was like, "This is how they do, son." This is, So I wasn't surprised, but anyways, it was good for the experience. So yeah, I didn't get that. So when I got the GB call, I was already in America, and I think I got an email from Ron. He's now with Ron Watilla.
Yeah.
And, he's the one that told me about it. And, I saw the guys who were on the list. And I was like, oh, this is going to be cool. Like, familiar with these guys. And we'll get better and blah, blah, blah. And so, yeah, it was. I did the futures thing.
Oh, yeah, of course. And, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So that was fun. Like, that whole summer was fun for me. I don't remember having fun, like, super fun, like, summers like that. I mean, I had the summers with Lou, and of course we had fun in Chicago, but in terms of like just compete in and, you know what I'm saying, like organized basketball. And I didn't have that. I never had that before.
Yeah.
Before this time. Yeah. So.
Yeah, because you actually just reminded me, because that 2010 was the first year they run a futures program, and you guys went to France, because I actually came with you. I remember. So
yes.
And on that squad, it was like there was you, Justin, Matthew, Ashley. Who else was there? Andy Thompson, was he playing as well? And then
yes, he was.
And there was. I'm trying to think who else was playing, but yeah, that was a pretty stacked sort of younger squad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then kind of like, and then obviously, and then by next summer, you were heading to Eurobasket to compete in the European Championships, which I think was 2011 was the group of death, right? When you had I'm sure that it was that year where there was like, let me have a, I think I did take notes beforehand. We had Lithuania, Turkey, Spain, Portugal, Poland.
Yes, I remember Poland. So
yeah, I
remember that.
So what were your memories of playing for GB that time? And obviously, I'm assuming the whole time, did you kind of have one eye on the Olympics, thinking, this is, I'm working towards, playing London 2012 ideally?
Okay, so GB for me was literally like a roller coaster, like this, literally. My first impression of GB was excitement. This is what I want to do. This is great, wonderful, lovely. Then it went sour real quick, like real quick. Initially, with Finch, it was like I wasn't even meant to play on the men's team that summer. Like when I did the futures. So my year with my first year with GB was my first year with the men's. So when I did the futures, he called me up from the futures to the men's, and it was all daunting to me, and I was just thinking, this is good for experience. I didn't know I'll end up starting. I ended up being a starting point guard for GB men's, and it was me, Nate Ranking, Luol, Pops, and I can't remember who was at the 5. Anyways,
Robert Archibald.
Might have been. No, Rob wasn't with us that year. It was might have been Joe Freeland or Eric. I don't know. Yeah. Someone else at the
Freeland,
5.
I think. Yeah. Okay.
So Quiet Jacks. So so this was it was exciting for me, but it was also like, shoot, I'm playing with pros. This is not just talking about NBA guy and EuroLeague guys. I'm just shoot.
And this was while you were still in college, of course, as well, right?
Yes, yeah. That's why I'm in college. So I got my first taste of European basketball, and I was hanging. And Luol was always Luol and Pops were mentors to me, and they were like, yo, listen, just do what you do, play freely. And it was cool. So that year went by, and then the following year, this is when I think Ben Gordon was with us, and this is when we played in Slovenia or Lithuania. I keep saying both of those two, but and it was different, the whole everything. Now the funny thing is there was more pressure the year before, because that year was where we had to meet the requirements, where we had to win our group. So the year where it was, because we had to win our Eurobasket group.
Yeah, that was when you had to qualifiers. Yeah. So 2010 was the qualifiers when you toured around the UK and you played Liverpool, Birmingham, Newcastle. Yes. Yeah, of course, yeah.
And in order to qualify for the Olympics, we had to win our group. And our group had Macedonia. We had
Hungary.
Bosnia, Hungary, and who was the other?
Was it Ukraine? Possibly.
And Ukraine, yes. Yeah. And I remember that because Matthew was on the team too. Matthew was with the senior men's my first year too. So yeah, so when it came up to the games, there was more pressure. Yeah. But again, it was more I have video, I have archives that I was looking through, and everybody was just joking around. It was free, and we were winning. We ended up winning, and we qualified for the Olympics. We met all the requirements for the Olympics. It was cool. The following year, you would have thought that was the year where there was pressure, and that year didn't really matter. It did, but it didn't. You know what I'm saying? The goal was the Olympics, and we made it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That year, it was the coaching staff. For me, it was just a whole disconnect. It was just whoa, I went there like with thinking, oh, it's going to be like last year. No, it wasn't. Just like tension and, as a young player, it affects you. It affects how it's hard to keep it business because just like, hold on, I thought it was gonna be like last year where we were successful, but anyways, it ended up being super weird. And funny enough, that's actually when I started playing professionally. So after that year, that's when the Olympics happened. That's when the training camp for the Olympics. So after my first year professional, I said it from the first day. I don't know if anybody remembers that I spoke to. I think I might have told Pops or Lou. So from the first day, I'm not gonna make the team. Yeah, I knew it from the first day, and they were like, "Oh, come on, stop." We're so used to joking around. But I told them, "Yo, like, I can tell just speaking to this guy, Finch, speaking to him, I was like, this is not gonna happen for me this year." And lo and behold, I was right. Now playing, like, not knowing him prior to the Olympic stuff, not knowing him, it was good that way. Because I don't, what I'm saying? Like, I don't know you, I just do my thing. You know what I'm saying? But because we were successful, I almost started to kind of like open up to him, which was like, oh yeah, like everybody's like, oh, he's a dick. And to me, I was just like, oh yeah, he just lets me do my thing. Big mistake, because the next year it wasn't like that at all. At all. Every little thing I did, let's say I passed to this guy instead of passing to this guy, or I miss a guy and I pass, he would just go. Like, there's no perfect game. Like, the one misses shots too, But that whole situation, when they ended up picking the team, he called me in and he told me, we still want you to hang around the team in case someone gets hurt. I'm thinking to myself, man, listen, now at the time GB was paying good money. At the time they were paying, I'm first year pro. I didn't have a lot of money, so I was like, shoot, you're paying good money, I'll stay. So I'm hanging around with the team. I'm still like everything pre Olympic Village. I'm with the team.
Yeah, because you kind of stayed on as a reserve, right? In case of injury. Yeah.
But I wasn't practicing. I wasn't allowed to practice because they had a team. They had their plays. So I'm just on the sideline, just running up and down with a ball, stuff like that. Tell you a funny story. Team USA game. I wasn't meant to play that game. I'm getting triggered right now. But 2 weeks before that, I hadn't played. I was out of shape. I didn't even have I don't know if you've seen, I didn't even have my shoes tied when I was on the bench when he called me in. He called me in and I was just like, is he calling me to really play right now? And he's like, yeah, go in there, because we were struggling. And I was just like, he's really calling me to play. And I hadn't played. So it was just like, oh my God. Yeah, it was madness. So that, how that went.
Yeah.
But so after that, we played a game in France, 2 games in France. First game against the African champions. A lot of people might not know this and I'll tell you why they don't know it. Played against the African champions. That was, at the time, what country was that?
Tunisia?
I don't know if it's Tunisia or Algeria. They were the African champions. They were going to be in the Olympics. And I had a double-double that game. Now, that game I was prepared for. I had a double-double and so did Pops. And at the time, this is when I probably started using Twitter. And GB didn't tweet about it. They didn't tweet about it. I'll never forget. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm the guy who didn't make the team and I had a double-double. Explain yourself. And I remember very clearly Pops going to Finch and saying, this guy needs to be on the team. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's one thing I love about Pops, because I remember he's the only one who actually, I'm not going to tell him to, this guy shouldn't be here. This guy should. But Pops literally he stood up for me, and I love him for that.
Yeah.
So But yeah, so I stayed on the team until somebody got hurt, which they did, Mike Lensley.
Yeah, because he did his calf, right? And they took him anyway. Because I'm really, like, yeah. How many games did he sit out? He sat out at least one, right?
He ruptured his Achilles. He couldn't walk.
He ruptured his Achilles.
Yeah. He ruptured his Achilles a week before. And I'm thinking to myself, like, Lou and Pop is telling me, yo, like, it's go time. Like, you're in there, bro. Nah. They said, I spoke to Finch, and he was like, yeah, we're going to give him a try. We think by the third game, he'll be ready. This is 2 weeks. So the third game is 2 weeks after rupturing your Achilles. Like, I'm with Mike. Like, I see this guy every day, and he's like this. Like, can't walk. And I'm thinking to myself, like, how is this possible? But they ended up trying him, like, saying, yes, maybe he'll make it. So he played the first game, and he had to get carried out in a stretcher. I remember very clearly. He got carried out in a stretcher, and I was just like, so they had 11 players.
Unreal.
When they had a London kid, and even, like, Justin didn't even come to training camp.
Yeah.
Like, it was painful, even up to today, because that's something that we'll never ever get, like, in his lifetime.
Yeah.
To have the Olympics in London, and we're from London, and then we have people who are not from London. They're not from London, and they, what I'm saying, they're representing us.
Yeah. So
it was painful, so that was, and then from then on, GB was just like like my face now. It was just like, because that right there was so painful for so many of us. And even for people who didn't want on the team, people from Brixton, people like just basketball fans in the UK, to watch Team GB and they can't even pick 5 guys out. Who will say, oh yeah, he's from here, he's from North London, or he's from Manchester, or he's from...
Yeah. So
that was, it was rough. It was a rough experience.
Crazy. Did it?
Yeah.
Obviously, so the next after that summer, you went to Eurobasket 2013, and that would have been with Prunty.
Yeah.
How did you find Prunty? How did you find the sort of the program after the Olympics?
It was a dial down. It wasn't where it was in terms of.
I mean, budgets have been cut and everything else, right? At that point, funding was being cut by UK Sport and.
Yeah, and even I feel like even for Prunty, he was still trying to figure stuff out too. He's a cool guy, but he was just trying to figure stuff out. So that was his first year, and anybody going to something for the first time is it's not going to be. I'm trying to say it's not going to be what people expect, or because people are going to come in there with a mindset of how it used to be, and it's totally different. But but it was cool. It was for what it was. It was cool. But again, the stain of the years past was still. The smell was still there, strong.
How do you kind of feel towards the GB program now?
Now, I don't know, man, because I feel like I'm a person who's 100% for the players. I think the players are the toolbox. They're the toolbox in terms of not just GB, but everything. Like, if the players are not being looked after, then you're exploiting them. Simple as. You can call it what you want to call it. You can call it pride. You can call it for your country. If the players are not getting all their needs met fully, then it's an abuse. And I feel like, to some extent, that's what's happening. If I'm being totally honest, because you're basically trying to use that, play for your country, that kind of, hey, don't worry, if you perform, then this is going to happen. That's all nonsense, because it's work at the end of the day. And these guys are putting their everything on their livelihood on the line. For what? For what? You're going to, and when you're young, you want to, it is something that you want to do, and you want to get the exposure, quote unquote. But as you get older, you start to really see things for what they are. And you start to realize, like, in any other field of life, any other business, this is unacceptable. if you take basketball, the word basketball out of it, and you say, okay, these guys are going to do this, this, and this. They're going to risk this, this, and this, and they're going to get this, this, and this. You realize that, yeah, nobody in their right mind says yes to that. Mm. So why should you ask basketball players to do that? If somebody gets hurt, are they going to pay for the surgery? Mm. You know what I'm trying to say? Like,
yeah. No, totally.
As you get older, you start to see these things, and it's just like this is, if you put it plain and simple on paper, this is abuse.
There's definitely it's clear. Like, obviously, I don't know if you were watching any of the Deng and Pop's show. They've been doing their Instagram lives every week or whatever, and sort of they obviously made a number of different comments about the GB program and stuff. And I think it's just so clear there is a huge disconnect between the organisation and the players, and there kind of always has been. And the tough thing now is, of course, that the program is completely different. Like, the people that are involved with it, I mean, GB in itself almost doesn't really exist anymore. But all those people that are involved with it at the Olympics aren't around anymore, and it's just like, and the turnover is just so high that it's just like, well, who are we actually talking about here? Because a lot of people that made those mistakes aren't around, but then there's new people in that are also making mistakes, and there's just no continuity, and there's obviously just a whole bunch of issues around the entire thing that needs a complete overhaul. Anyway, I'm aware of time here, so just to kind of, we've spoken about GB, obviously done some college stuff, just kind of, I guess, a brief overview of the pro stuff. One thing I obviously didn't want to touch upon, of course, was retirement. You kind of retired. In your Instagram post that you did at the time, you obviously spoke about your struggles with depression, mental health. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that? Kind of what happened with your pro career? Kind of what made you want to step away, and then how you ended up sort of returning?
Okay, so initially it was like I started to ask myself, why am I still doing this? And I feel like every player should ask themselves that, or write it down. Why are you doing this? And see it from a bird's eye view, because initially basketball for me was, I did it because it was fun and I loved it. But as I started to play professionally, it became less and less fun. It wasn't as fun. It was strictly business, and I was fine with it. But again, anyone playing in Europe knows sometimes you're gambling because you might not get your money. You play in Europe long enough, you're gonna have a year where you don't get your money, or it's gonna be super late. Or you're gonna have to fight battles for your money. It was very frustrating for me. To go through that. And I had a couple of other experiences with Europe. I signed with a team, and it got to a point I didn't mind if the money was late. I'm talking 6 months, 7 months late. Yeah, as long as I got it. But then I had a couple instances when I never got it. 2 years. Played, 2 different seasons where I didn't get my money up to this day. So it's like, okay, so what am I doing this for? Am I doing this for, I'll do this for the love. I hate when people say that, because it's business. Keep what this is my livelihood. So that was happening, and at the same time, it was just, I had a couple incidents with my team where, I mean, it was other stuff happening. My team, like our fans were like making monkey noises towards the other black players on the other team, and it wasn't the first time it happened, but it was just like so much was going on. I was thinking to myself, like my whole life was boiled down to money, because that's what I was doing it for at this point. I wasn't playing for no championship. Obviously you try to win because you're competitive, but I won a championship my second year. I won a cup championship in Cyprus, and after if you win, it's like, hey, and then it's like, nobody in Europe, they're playing for a championship, but nobody's gonna play for a championship for free. So I was thinking to myself, the only reason I'm playing basketball is because of money, which is not a bad thing, but it's like, how long does this last? What happens when I can't play anymore? You know what I'm saying? What happens? And it put me in a place where I was just like, you know what? How do I? And this was actually happening early on in my career, because I was thinking, I'm always looking ahead, trying to think, what am I going to do what am I going to do next year or 2 years from now? I've always been like that, and I couldn't. I had this mental block where I couldn't see myself past, basketball. Like I am nothing without basketball. And it didn't sit well with me, and I struggled with it and I battled with it. And I said, you know what? I think it's best if I remove myself. Because if I remove myself, then I have no other choice but to find something else. And me coming from Laurenburg, if I can get through that, I can get through this, So it was tough. My first year, I thought it was freedom because I was like, I don't have a schedule. I don't have to be anywhere. I don't have to be in shape. I don't have to, I can play basketball, but for fun, I didn't have to do anything. But then it took me to a very dark place because I realized truly like I was just a basketball player. That's all I was, and I don't believe that's true for any of these guys because just because they haven't found themselves or found something outside of basketball doesn't mean they're just limited to one, to one thing. So I decided, what, I'm gonna try a bunch of things that I couldn't try before because I have all this time now. So I tried all kinds of things, all types of, just trying to find myself. And around that time, that's when Jimmy got sick, and I was with Jimmy the whole step of the way and I watched his body, deteriorate over a 6-month period. And initially, eventually going to his funeral, when I went to his funeral, it kind of did something in me. And it made me feel like, I don't fully know what I'm going to do when I'm done playing. I have an idea, but I can still play. I can still dedicate a year or two to Jimmy, just for him, And I spoke to my agent. I told him, give me 1 month because I knew and I know my body that well that I only need this amount of time to get ready. And after a month, I called him. I said, what's up? And he was like, there's this team, in Italy. I was like, let's do it. I didn't even ask about the money. I said, let's do it. Let's go. And, ended up being the top team in Italy, top team in the league. And I ruptured my patella tendon. Lovely. Yeah. So yeah, that was, that's another experience, going through surgery. That kind of put into perspective everything I was thinking, beforehand. What happens if this happens? Because you ask anyone, like, I'm never hurt. I'm a machine.
You're the Iron Man.
So, you know what I'm saying? So for me to go through this was like really like humbling. And it brought me to a place where I was like, you know what? I'm glad I had those thoughts. I'm glad I took that year out because now I have other things, that I've put in place, because this basketball thing is fickle because as humans, we're fickle. We're going to end up not playing one day. And, one injury is around the corner. Young guys that, that have never had any injuries, like you feel invincible, but all it takes is one. That's it, just one. And if you weigh that on a scale, it's dangerous, because one mistake, one sharp turn, one anything, and everything you've put your all into, it goes up in smoke. So for me, that almost it gave me a goal in terms of like, I want to get back. Like that was, apart from, trying to play at a higher level and trying to make X amount, that was probably the only goal I had as a professional basketball player, to get back from my injury. Sorry.
So, this season, obviously, this kind of just finished prematurely. You obviously signed with the London Lions for a period. Did you ever end up suiting up for the Lions?
For like 2 or 3 games.
2 or 3 games, and then you ended up going back to Italy again, right?
Yes, I did.
And were you there until this coronavirus stuff happened?
So I was in Italy for like 8 or 9 days. And funny enough, yeah. So funny enough, I always have stories, but that was the situation. So long story short, as I was about to sign with the team, they decided to sign someone else. Yeah, weird situation. Like it was. I was kind of happy because it was. When I got to the situation, it had a little bit of Laurenburg smell in it, So when I got there, I was just like, I knew everybody on the team, and they were like, "Yo, we don't know why you came to this team, but we're happy you came," because they didn't have a point guard. And I was just like, okay. So the team, it's in the south of Italy, which is more mafia type, like, what I'm trying to say. So I was just like, oh boy. And I played in the South before, so I kind of knew what to expect. I wasn't blind. And I knew all the guys on the team because I played against them, ex-teammates, blah, blah. But I got to the team and, practiced well. Everything was cool. And then as I was about to sign, this was like in 2 or 3 days, mind you. No, like 4 days. I was about to sign. Hold on, let me take my headphones out. I think my headphones are lost.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I've got you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Cool.
So as I was about to sign, the president decides he wants to sign a wingman. They don't have a point guard, and he just this is the kind of European stuff that happens sometimes. So at the time, I'm telling my agent like I wasn't even arguing. I've been asking why. I just said I said cool, and I had stayed there for like another 6 days or 7 days, just waiting for a cheap flight, and I ended up buying my own flight to get out of there because it's just like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks later.
Wow. Crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so look, we're coming up on an hour, so I guess just to kind of to finalize, I guess the future for you, kind of how's it looking? Let's just say that the 2020-21 season comes back on time, is on time, and starts. Do you think you're going to be playing basketball? And if you're not going to be playing basketball, what do you think is in your future? What do you envision yourself doing?
So I started my own business, but that's another topic. But I don't like to talk about things when they're in the process. So so I can't really answer that question. I don't know. Right now it's very limbo-ish for me. But I'm definitely working on a bunch of stuff that I'm trying to do. So yeah, we'll see, man.
We'll see. Perfect. Oh, well, look, thank you so much for taking the time. It is massively appreciated. We'll have to do a part 2 at some point in the future and kind of go more into the weeds of the pro stuff, because we didn't really get there in this one. But yeah, thank you so much, man. It's much appreciated.